Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom Grossi, and, well, we made it to the final game of the 2019 regular season, and as I feel like it happens every single year, we, of course, finish with the Detroit Lions. Now, obviously, this is a tale of two different teams this year, but obviously a lot at stake for the Green Bay Packers going forward, and so because of that, we decided to bring on the man, the myth, the legend, Luke G from Luke G Fields Review. Luke, thank you so much for joining, buddy. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. We, finally able to get this thing done. We tried it earlier, but we're here now.
Abso-freaking-lutely. Yeah, I mean, so if you guys don't know about Luke G Field Review, I've been on his show before. He runs a great program. He constantly does a whole bunch of live streams. He does live roundtables in which he has a whole bunch of different fans coming on to kind of discuss the Detroit Lions, everything Lions. So if you happen to be one of those random Lion fans that just wandered onto this channel, this is for you. And I'm very curious to kind of talk to you and break down what has happened this season, because when we spoke earlier this season, I feel like both of us kind of had like higher hopes for the Detroit Lions this season, and it unfortunately did not roll out that way.
No, a lot of the things that they did end up backfiring by virtue of coaching and head coaching direction and things like that. And when we both looked at this team, we saw a team that we saw tremendous talent on, and at the end of the day, we never really utilized the talent. We never used the two tight end sets. We never really utilized the run appropriately. We never even came close to even being the defense that we finished the season with that first year under Matt Patricia. And then on top of that, we know what happened in the first Green Bay Packers game. You said the referees took a lot of the love from it. I felt that the Lions didn't score enough, and I felt that they left too much football on the field. So it was so many things that changed the direction of the Lions, but none greater or bigger than our head coach.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up for Matt Patricia, because obviously when, Matt Patricia was like one of those like hot free agent coaches, right? Because he's a Belichick guy. Everyone whoever has hired a Belichick coach is hoping to get Bill Belichick in some way, shape, or form, right? Whether it's Brian Flores with the Miami Dolphins or whether it's Matt Patricia here with the Detroit Lions. And obviously with a guy with a defensive mind who has been able to go in and really take people who are nobodies and turn them into defensive superstars and really kind of, bolster that defense with very, very little every single year, at least there was the hope that, considering you're in the NFC North, in which it's a very throwing, or pass-efficient division, kind of what is your thoughts on after this season, now that you've had a couple of seasons to kind of stew with Matt Patricia? There's Lions fans that I've talked to that are like, hey, I'm ready for him to go. And obviously the franchise and the organization has said that they're going to roll with him for another year. I'm kind of curious on what your take is as a fan looking at this and saying, like, is the Matt Patricia experiment over, or do we need to give it more time?
No, it was over for me after the first year. I was done after the first year. When I saw what happened in that game against Sam Darnold, and then I said, okay, you know what? He was first off a Super Bowl. It was dumb luck. And then more games came, and I said, wait a minute. We were winning games, and he was making these huge mistakes, and I was getting irritated. And when they announced that they was bringing him back, I couldn't understand for what. And I didn't understand it. Like, I kept asking our fan base, who comes into a team that's 9-7 and say rebuild? Who does that? Matt Patricia does it. And it's ridiculous. You have so many players come out and talk about their displeasure with him, and you have a few players who show support for him, but overall, the displeasure was overwhelming, and it's frustrating for me as a Lions fan to see a team that has so much talent to hear the coach say this team is better than 3-12-1, and I know they're 3-11-1, but I give them zero hope against the Packers in Week 17. So 3-12-1, which gives them a worse record than a coach who went 10-22, and the third season went 0-16 for the Lions, and Rob Marinelli. So it's frustrating for me, to say the least, because I did have high expectations for this team. But now that they capped Matt Patricia, I got everybody on the hot seat. Bob Quinn on the hot seat, and so many other people. And it's just hard to look at this team and not be exhausted with this approach to keep a head coach who really didn't show you much of anything this season.
Yeah, and I think it has to be frustrating too, because like from what I saw, obviously as an outside observer, but we play you guys twice a year. Like I saw this a lot last year, and I thought there was actually progress with this. That like last year, Matt Patricia basically tried to turn Matt Stafford into Tom Brady, right? Of like that quick release, like get the ball away quickly. The offense was kind of like jumbled and really didn't seem to be synchronized at all, because Matthew Stafford, like I have always been a fan of Matthew Stafford. The guy, his durability and the amount of punishment that guy has taken behind your offensive line with a lack of weaponry, with no running game. And it's just like the guy has an arm that is one of the best arms in the NFL. And I think if you look at all that, and they were trying to turn him into that kind of Tom Brady-esque offense, which just didn't make sense, because, you know, you have to adapt to the players that you have, right? And, you know, this year, you know, obviously, you guys got plagued with injuries this year, right? So whether it's running back, whether it's a QB, you know, we can't really do a whole lot about that. So when you're looking at Matt Patricia and trying to evaluate him, how much emphasis do you put on, okay, we were really injured this year, as opposed to I'm seeing the same old thing, even with, you know, our second string or third string guys?
10%, because the injuries were 10% of the problem. 90% of it was the head coach. When Stafford was leading the league in touchdowns, leading the league in throws over 20 and 40 yards, leading the league and having the lowest interception to touchdown ratio, we were 3-4-1. And so when you go through and you look at the tail of the tape, you know, here you are beating a team in the Chargers 13-10, barely beating them, but you barely beat this team, and they had no Melvin Gordon, no Darwin James. They had a hurt Mike Williams and no Hunter Henry, and you beat them 13-10 at home, barely. And it was only because the quarterback was forced to have to throw the ball into double coverage. Mm-hmm. But those little things like that, to me, injuries were the small part. Injuries is what they tell season ticket holders so that they don't drop out. To me, I saw coaching flaws. When you're punting the ball, knowing that, hey, punting the ball essentially ends the game, and you still didn't get that, you punted it anyway. It's 3rd and 1. You put in J.D. McKissick. Yeah. Like, not a power back, but J.D. McKissick. And then you wonder why he scats and tries to go outside. Yeah, that's what he does. So these little things is what I've noticed. And for all the efforts of Stafford, there's another reason why I have issues with Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. You knew Stafford had an injured back last season, yet you played him in those final 6 games, and we had nothing to play for. Why? So, yeah, much of it, what I see now, is much of the same stuff that I saw in year 1, and it was frustrating because this guy literally had opportunity to make adjustments. To show you how crazy it is, we got a defensive-minded head coach in the worst defense in the league. But we bring in an offensive coordinator who's had 4 to 5 different quarterbacks play, and the offense is still rolling. So am I supposed to give Matt Patricia credit for the offense? No. Yeah. That's all Darrell Bevel. He allows his coaches to coach.
I mean, because you look at it, like you were saying before, right? Like you had like a 9-7 team, and then Matt Patricia's coming in and being like, "Well, it's time to rebuild, kids." And like at some point, because you and I talked about this at length, because you and I had a beef over T.J. Hockenson, because I wanted him so badly for the Green Bay Packers this year, and you guys scooped him up, and literally my first thought was, "Oh crap." Like, you know, like this is a problem. And there were moments, right? Like there were times where like TJ Hockenson earlier in the season would break out and have phenomenal games, and the guy who could show, again, whether it was a blocking ability or his pass catching ability, the guy was a difference maker on the field. And you referenced this earlier, like where are the 2 tight end sets? Like where is playing to the players a bit, like, you know, their strengths, right? Like, listen, you know, you may want a Tom Brady, you may want a Patriots style team, but like, listen, these are the players, these are the pieces that you have. You need to adapt and make sure that you're playing to their strengths. And it just doesn't seem like that is happening. And instead of taking steps forward, it looks like we're taking numerous steps backwards.
Amen. And the worst part about it is this: there's Lions fans who still believe that, oh, you don't take a tight end at 8. But when I tell them, you realize that he did not play the same amount of games as Tony Gonzalez, and he had the exact same numbers. And that's being underutilized. And I said, just go and get the same touches that was given to Noah Fant to T.J. Hockenson. Put him on Green Bay. I guarantee you nobody's going to be able to stop that tight end.
Yeah.
He's a cheat code. And there are fans who say, no, he didn't do anything. He did a lot. He's underutilized. That's the problem. And you know, they for some reason just I don't understand why they don't know how to get the ball to their weapons. You know, I mean, we have games like, for example, the Raiders game. You know, you rush on the final play, you rush two people, and not just any two people. Snacks Harrison and Flowers. These is who you rushing. Two. The quarterback had nothing but time for days and found the opening and beat you. Why? Because you play soft defense every time. The same thing happened with the Cardinals game. And you're right. They're not utilizing the weapons. I made this comment the other day on one of my shows. I said the Packers have got to be the worst 12-3 team I have ever seen. And somebody said, how can you say that? One of the Packers fans said, how can you say that? And I said, you lost to a Chargers team. I said, which I don't know how that happened. You lost to the Eagles. I said, both of those are bottom-feeding teams. I said, but outside of that, the schedule was in such a way that y'all played a bunch of trash people. But kudos to y'all for being able to say we pulled the win out. And I said, that's the difference between coaching when you tell me that our coach need an extra year, and I watch a first-year coach over in Green Bay go 12-3. I'm trying to figure out how does he have more wins than our head coach have in 2 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at like the beginning of this season, right? And so like the beginning of the season, the Bears weren't the Bears. And what I mean by that is like, we didn't know that they were complete and total frauds for at least like the first half, you know, until we got to October. Yeah. Then we were like, okay, they were bad. But like, there was a time where like the Packers literally were the team that beat the winningest teams. You know, they beat teams who had a winning percentage that was higher than 500. And I think that their schedule definitely was beneficial of like, for example, we played the Chiefs at an opportune time because they didn't have Patrick Mahomes, right? We played, and we did, absolutely. We lost to the Eagles on a short week. We got blown out by the Chargers, which, that was horrendous. And then we got our ass kicked by the 49ers. I think that, you know, when you look at the Vikings game from this past Monday, obviously that was a bit of a statement and was saying like, okay, like, you know, this team could potentially make some noise. But what I think about when it comes to why the Packers have been as successful as they have, you could put schedule in there, but I think it's also because this is for the first time in years. It is week 17 and the vast majority of the Packers are healthy. And you don't see that. Like the Seahawks, they're getting demolished by injuries, right? They have to bring in Marshawn Lynch to come back. They're like, hey, bud, come on. You're good. Or the 49ers, like they're getting decimated by injuries as well. And you look at these teams and who is going to be able to thrive. And listen, I don't know what's going to happen with the Packers in the playoffs. I truly don't know. But you have a healthy team and somewhat of a balanced team. But I mean, I've been of the mindset of, okay, when you had Matt LaFleur coming in, I had no idea what to expect, right? He was with Tennessee for a year, right, in which that was his only play calling time. He wasn't even the head coach. Then he was with, you know, LA before that, and he didn't call any plays, and like he had like a bit of a resume. But as you said, it's a first year coach, right? Like, you know, you never know what you're going to expect. For him to go and be this good and be 12-3, I was like, oh, I'll take it. You know, we might lose in the divisional round, and I will still see this season as an unrivaled success. Because again, as you should see it as a success. Because here's the thing, I honestly think that the one thing Matt LaFleur does is he utilizes his talent. If he don't do nothing else good, he utilizes his talent. That's it. Well, it's funny because like there's times where like so for example, like when Davante Adams was out for those stretch of games, like we were spreading the ball around, utilizing Aaron Jones a ton, and then when we got away from Aaron Jones, we lost to the Chargers, we lost to we lose to these teams because we're not utilizing Aaron Jones, and he got a lot of flack for that. But kudos to him for adjusting and realizing, hey, Davante Adams and Aaron, like we win when we give Aaron Jones the ball.
Say that word for me one more time. Say that word with the A. The word with the A, you know. adjust. Say that one more time.
Adjusting? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What that means is your coach actually listens and looks at tape, looks at tape and makes changes based on that tape. Well, you know, I think the biggest like sin that's going on here too is like I still hear from your fan base of like who are looking at Matt Stafford and going, yeah, that's the problem. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no. I'm like, Matthew Stafford's the reason why you're even close in some of these games. And
have not won since he left.
I mean, it's just I don't get it. And I think looking at this going forward is obviously he's suffered a few injuries, right? And some of them have been pretty substantial. And you look at it and you go, okay, if you decide to move on from Matt Patricia, I don't think your organization is going to move on from him next year. At least that's what they've indicated. But then again, you never know. But like, I agree. Which is sad. But then at that point, okay, let's say you stick with Matt Patricia next season. I mean, what would be a success? Like a winning record, 8-8, and you still are like, well, that's one less year of Matthew Stafford that we have because he's been the best QB that we've had for a long, long time. And listen, just like it is with Aaron Rodgers, just like it is with Drew Brees, Tom Brady, what have you, there is a shelf life, especially when you have injuries.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what you say, everything you said is spot on because I don't believe that they're going to get rid of him. And the standard has been that they have to be a playoff contender, not a playoff team, a playoff contender. And that tells me if they are just in contention for playoffs, this is the letter that they sent out to season ticket holders. They sent the letter out saying that this team needs to be a playoff contender. I hate that standard.
Yeah,
this team went from 9-7. To 6-10 to now 3-12-1, and I know we have not played y'all yet, but I'm just letting you know I have zero faith.
You're just like I'm marking it off. That's fine. I'm watching anything else.
It doesn't make sense. I'm gonna watch the game. I love football, but it's just one of the things where that's the standard that is set, and the key word of adjustment is not there. And plus, when I looked at the Green Bay Packers, I gave y'all zero chance to beat the Lions. You know why? Is I said, we're going to run 2 tight end sets, and all that rushing y'all doing off the edge ain't going to matter. Nope. They didn't even use it. Yeah. Not once in that game. And it took y'all a while for the rush to get there, but that's when y'all realized we weren't going to run the ball. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I realized about good coaches. They understand that running the ball changes the outcome of the game.
Sure.
We have yet to establish a run the game since forever. We give Bo Scarborough, who showed that he can run the ball, and he's on a freaking snap count.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
like,
I mean, but that's the thing too. Like, at what point do you look at this and you're like, okay, it's literally the same thing every year. Like the wins and losses might be like somewhat different, but like lack of a run game. I feel like if I interviewed you last year, 3 years ago, 5, like I feel like we're having this exact same conversation of like, you know, whether it's inconsistency at the running back or whether it's, you know, using multiple backs or like you said, utilizing a snap count for the guys that actually can run the ball. It almost is like, okay, well, you're already handcuffing yourself before you even step foot on the field because the Packers or any other team is going to look at that and be like, we don't have to worry about the run. And so because of that, we can just play for the pass and that's it. Like, we'll be fine. You know, every now and then maybe we'll give up like 3 or 4 yards in the run and that'll be it. And already you're putting yourself at such a disadvantage. And it seems to be like you're putting that on coaching.
Yeah, and this head coach to me, I've had so many fans tell me, "Oh, you're being negative. Oh, you're not looking at it from the bright side." I said, "There's nothing to be optimistic about." I said, "The last coach to have a record that was 10-22, his third year, he went 0-16. That is our history. That is the fact." I said, I have waited for a Lions fan to tell me what have we done good. You want to tell me the offense got better? Credit Darrell Bevell. You want to tell me that that everything else, people missing tackles and all, or the promise of players? Who brought these players in here? This is Matt Patricia's guy. Bob Quinn goes out and gets the groceries that the chef said he needs for the meal. Now, Matt Patricia said, I need apples, crust, and sauce, so I'm going to make an apple pie. But Bob Quinn goes out and gets those ingredients, and he gives us pecan pie. I don't know how he came up with a different pie, but that's what he did.
Walk down the wrong
because
aisle.
We don't run. Yeah, right. You know, and we don't run. We don't run the ball. We don't commit to running the ball. And you're talking about a quarterback who's having an MVP season. You were still 3-4-1, and on top of that, Matthew Stafford got the same injury that ended Tony Romo's career. How many more years are you going to put him through this?
Yep. Yeah.
You know, when he's had a 100-yard rusher, he's got one loss. And out of 15 100-yard rusher games, 1 or 2 losses at best.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
No, and it's funny too, because like you got guys like Trey Flowers, right? You paid him a lot of money to get Trey Flowers. You went and got Mike Daniels, right? You got my boy. I love Mike Daniels. Mike Daniels didn't do did nothing for you. Like, and I love Mike Daniels forever. They rushed
him back.
But
they rushed him back too soon.
Yeah, but that's the thing too. Like you put these pieces in there, right? You have guys like Galladay. You have staff. You have all of these pieces here. You have Darius Slay, and then you're trading people who are integral parts of your defense, and guys are turning around like, oh wait, what? Hold on, what happened? You traded him, the guy who everybody in the locker room loved. Oh, okay. This is gonna go over really well with the boys, Matt. Yeah, this is gonna go great. This is really good. This is really good stuff.
And they did that because, according to Quandre Diggs, they did it because they were trying to silence voices.
Yeah.
He along with Darius Slay were voicing their displeasure with a lot of stuff that was going on.
Yeah.
We had a tight end, Vales, who came out in the media and said, yes, it was true that Matt Patricia was docking us for being late, but he came late when he felt like it. And this has been something that's been documented from multiple sources. You got Stephen Tulloch on Twitter saying we got rid of Jim Caldwell for this. The Lions fan base deserve better. You got people who are screaming, sell the team to Jeff Bezos. Like, I don't know why they want to sell the team to the Amazon guy, because if I'm in business, I'm changing the market. So all these things are occurring under these guys' watch, and Matt Patricia wanted Quandre Diggs gone because he wasn't happy with the way the defense was playing, and made all these other statements like, oh, he was too much talking or whatever. But guess what? He gets over there with Pete Carroll. First game, I think he's interception. Second game, pick 6. And I'm like, you think
this went well? This was a great decision as you sit there and watch this.
Yeah, a fifth round pick.
Well, I mean, so
it's crazy.
Because like there's a point where if we're trying to play devil's advocate, where if you have a guy like Matt Patricia who's coming in and is saying, hey, this is the direction that this team is going to go in, either hop on board or get off the tracks, right? Like there is some logic to that. However, when your team is going in getting 3 wins in a season, nobody wants to be aboard that train. No one wants to. Like, I feel like Quandre Diggs is like, hey, guys, like, there's a fire back there. Like, someone lit like a trash can on fire in the locker room. Someone should probably go look at that. And Matt Patricia is like, yeah, no, we can't have that here. You can't be calling out fires and stuff. So I'm going to have to send you to a different team because, while the place is burning to the ground, he's just like, nah, this is fine. Everything is good. And like, and it's sad because, it's one of those things that, like, even when I was doing like the season predictions, right, and like looking at it, and I was like, hey, the Lions have a bunch of talent. I think that they might be like an 8-8 team, but I think they're still going to finish last within the division because I think the division is going to be really strong. I didn't know I'd be like wrong on the 8-8 part. I thought I'd be wrong and maybe they'll finish third or maybe they'll finish second. Yeah. And it's crazy because this conversation that we're having now is very similar to the conversation that I had with a Redskins fan earlier this year. And it seems like while you're saying you have no optimism, like the fandom is still there, right? You're just like, hey, even if we get blown out, I'm still going to watch the Lions. I'm still going to support the Lions. I'm still going to talk about the Lions. I'm going to do all that stuff. Me talking to this Redskins fan, and he was just like, there's like, Dan Snyder owns a team. He's never going to give it up, and there's no hope. He's like, no one shows up to the games. They're $5 tickets. Like, it's literally like the worst case scenario, and there's people who are just not supporting the team anymore. And so that kind of leads me into the question that I'm asking you. At what point or what needs to be done to fix the Detroit Lions? And you can say head coach, and I'll give you that definitely could improve things. But as you have gone through a litany of head coaches throughout the years, what do you think is fundamentally wrong with the Detroit Lions, and how do you fix that?
The biggest issue with the Detroit Lions is we have no continuity when it comes to being consistent. And what I mean by that is we want too many choir boys. Every team needs a bad guy, okay? You need a bad guy. When we had Ndamukong Suh, he was our bad guy. I know Packer fans couldn't stand that dude.
Nope.
Guess what? You know who else couldn't stand him? The Packers. And that right there created a whole dilemma where you had to account for it. There's nobody that the Packers fear on the Lions. They don't fear Slay. They picked on him. They don't fear Trey Flowers. They don't fear Snacks. There's nobody that they fear. They fear Stafford. But the biggest problem with this team is we just don't seem to know how to be a complete team through a season. Earlier in the year, offense started out sluggish. Defense did good. Defense started doing bad. Offense started lighting it up. We never have the balance of having a run game, a pass game, and creativity and play calling. We got that for the first time this year in first-year offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell. We just need to find a head coach who has attitude, who has moxie, who has some type of infectious belief. I'm also a Buccaneers fan, and the Buccaneers added Bruce Arians, and they added Ndamukong Suh. And this team looks night and day from last year. Night and day. And it's because the head coach is effective. He's out there cussing out referees on bad calls. He's throwing flags and stuff that he know not going to get it. But he understood it was going to get his guys riled up when they told him it wasn't going to happen. Our head coach chews his lips and tries to eat his face. And so we need to find ways to get people who is in the game with the players. We don't have that. You see Pete Carroll, 70. He runs up and down the sidelines. Matt Patricia stands in the same spot the entire time. He's not going to give himself a heart attack or a stroke trying to run up and down the sideline. So until we find somebody or the Lions understand that you need somebody who's going to make noise, who's going to be disrespectful. And if you go all the way back to the Wayne Fonts times and look at that 91 team, you will see that the head coach attitude reflected in every player. Right now, our players don't like the head coach, and therefore it's reflected right down to the bottom of it.
It's funny too, because like you look at like the Dallas Cowboys and what's going on with them now, right? With Jason Garrett, or like even like with the Browns, right? Like, so like the players are like sitting on the sideline, like they look dejected. They look miserable. Right. And it's one of those that you bring up an absolutely golden point. And I think it's some of those like underrated, kind of characteristics of a head coach. Like you want someone who's in the trenches with you, who's in the thick of it. And I think that's why, Matt LaFleur has actually been successful, right? He's like brought, and because players are coming out left and right and saying this, whether they're on the defense or the offense, that he's like injected this like youthful energy that is like going on. Like I remember David Bakhtiari was ripping on LaFleur, like one of the first or second times that he like was trying to publicly speak in front of the team, and like, his voice was like stuttering and he was like all nervous and stuff like that. But like they recognize that like, hey, like he was one of them, and it was one of those things of like, hey, we want to go win these football games, and we're gonna go and we're gonna do this stuff. And I think that even again, if you are at the same record that you were at right now, right, in that the season just didn't go well, and it was because of the injuries, right? Whether it was running back, Matt Stafford, what have you. You had all these injuries, but if like the culture was there, I feel like there's a missing identity of the Lions, and there's also a lack there of culture. Preach.
And I call the Dallas Cowboys Lions 2.0.
Yeah.
Kellen Moore, former Lion. Rob Marinelli, former Lion. John Kidner, former Lion. Their whole team is former Lions. And when you go through and you look at the Dallas Cowboys, guess what? They got the same problems we have. No inspiration from a head coach. He claps his way through the entire time. And on top of all that clapping, guess what? He sits on the sideline with the blanketed stare I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
And he has all the talent in the world to get it done. And he has an owner who's in his way. The Lions had an owner who was in their way. But they have an owner who's trying to let the people do their job versus William Clay, RP. But you're right. There is no identity. And that's what frustrates me about this whole idea of keeping it. And if Patricia does not succeed next year, we're set back 5 years. And people say, how did you come up with 5 years? I say, okay, so it's going to take a new head coach at least 2 years to remove the remnants of all these players that they brought in and it's going to take them a third year for you to see it, and then we're not going to be able to judge them until year 4 and 5. That's 5 years total, because now you're going to have to get a new quarterback and all types of stuff.
Yep.
And you would have wasted another superstar in Matthew Stafford like you did with Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders. They just ride their best player to death, and that's what they do.
Yeah. Well,
and
yes.
That's what's happening.
Well, like, that's the thing too. Like, you look at, Calvin Johnson, right? Like, in his feelings towards the franchise, right? Like, that should be like a huge red flag that, like, hey, something needs to change, right? The fact that you have a guy who's going out and listen, like, Calvin Johnson could still play, whether he wanted to or not. The guy could, if he really wanted to, he could still play. And
I believe that.
Whether it's not today or whether we're talking about, years ago, I'm saying when he left, the man could still play football by far.
Yeah, they said that. I remember the reports were if he was traded, he would play.
Yeah.
But because they refused to trade him, he was like, "Oh, I'm retired."
Okay, done. Bye. Yeah. Well, that's easy. I'm gonna go and chill with my millions of dollars now and not have to deal with this. Yeah, and I think it's just a matter of, like, at what point do you go, okay, do we need to gut everything? Like, or do we just need to, like, because again, I think that's what people fail to recognize about what a head coach actually does. It goes because a head coach doesn't necessarily even need to call the plays, right? They can give that to the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator. They don't have to touch the playbook. And you have coaches that don't do that. And I think it's what the coach needs to be is a representation of where you want to be as a football team and where you want to be as an organization. And if you're coming out every single year and saying, hey, we want to be playoff contenders, that's not acceptable. Because you look at it and the way that the Packers talk is like every year, even when they were doing things I disagreed with, every year they came out and said, our goal is to win championships. And that's it. And if we don't, we consider it a failure. And that's it. There's no and, there's no but, there's nothing. That's it. And if you're saying, hey, if we could just make it to the playoffs and, we'll go to the wild card and then, get kicked out in the wild card round, like who is settling in or forking over thousands of dollars to be like, yeah, I'm really looking forward to a 9-win team every single year, if that.
Facts. And take it a step further. If that's the standard, what did you get rid of Jim Caldwell for? He made it to the playoffs twice.
It's true.
Twice.
It's true.
So what did you get rid of him for? If the only thing you wanted was playoffs, why get rid of Jim Caldwell? And you know what I find interesting about how people view head coaches and stuff like that? If you think about a head coach, or you think about the word coach is not a title. There are a lot of things like husband, title, boyfriend, title, boss, title, supervisor, title. Coaching is a characteristic and that is a displayed skill.
Yeah.
So when I look at you as a coach, I should see a displayed skill to the term coach. You're supposed to coach. Our coach is not doing that, in my opinion.
Yeah, you need to personify what it means to be a coach, and I think it's,
exactly.
I think it's a matter of head coaches get a lot of flack, because when things go wrong, they're usually the first ones that people look at and go, okay, well, this person needs to go, and in some cases they're not the problem at all, I think that when it comes to the coach, if your players are not behind that coach, and you're talking about, I'm not talking about like one or two players, I'm talking about a number of players, especially some of your best players, are not behind your coach, that's a significant problem, because right there you have a difference in what the vision for the team is going to be. You can say, like Aaron Rodgers came out a couple weeks ago in this interview and basically said, like, listen, as players, what we want, obviously, we all want the same thing, right? So but we all want, the end goal is to win a championship. But some of you are here more for like monetary value, right? And like you're trying to get as much money as you possibly can while you can get that money, while you're still young and fit and what have you. Some of you are just saying, hey, I want it for the fame. I want it for the attention, the recognition, what have you. He goes, but at the end of the day, what it's about is the bond that you make between these teammates. And if you don't have that and are moving forward together as a team, then what's it all for? Because all that other stuff is temporary, right? But like the relationships that you're going to make with all these players and coaches and staff members, that's going to be the stuff that's going to transcend the game. And if you're talking about the Detroit Lions right now, you know, and if they are not behind their head coach, who's supposed to be the epitome of that changing culture within Detroit and saying, hey, we are going to get better, we are going to improve, we are going, like, I don't see any of that. And that's from an outsider. And it seems like you don't see it either.
I'm going to get a lot of heat. I'm going to get a lot of heat from a lot of Lions fans who are going to feel like, oh, you know, you didn't represent the Lions in a positive light. But the reality is, I've always told the subscribers, I've always told people who listen to me that if you're coming onto this show to hear somebody lie to you, I'm not the right person for you.
Yeah,
I'm not going to lie to you. And to me, it just boils down to this idea of culture. And when people talk about culture, I keep telling them, you realize he turned over more than 85% of the team. And if that's not a culture change, I don't know what is.
Yeah. No, this is his culture that he's trying to create, and it's not working.
Right. And the thing that I also look at with the Lions is this. I've always told people, if you have high expectations and something is not met, you have a right to be disappointed. Like, I expected this team to win a division. I expected this team to come out and compete and challenge and things like that. And to come out with this record, to see games and hear, we were in every game, but you lost them. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to hear about how you was in them. I just want to know what is the plan going forward. And it's one of the things that I look at with the Packers. And again, I'm not going to kill the Packers, because this is the thing I look at. If you just were to look at the last game the Packers had and say that game had to be won with Aaron Rodgers' arm, it wouldn't have happened. But what did this host do? He said, hey, my running back can't be stopped. Give him the ball. Give it to him some more. Give it to him again. Yep. I want them to know his number. I want it tattooed on their jerseys and on their arm. Give him the ball again. We don't even commit to it at that level. And to me, it's unfortunate, because I believe that this team has talent. I believe that this team is better than 3-12-1. And I believe that this team ultimately was not a rebuild. I've never heard of an organization rebuilding at the 9-7 until the Detroit Lions, and that's tragic. Mm-hmm. That's tragic, because nobody does that. And when you look at the talent that we got, they just placed our rookie linebacker on injury reserve with 1 week left. What does that do?
Yeah. How
does that help the team? And so it's frustrating to be a Lions fan, but there are some things that I've seen that was good. Darrell Bevel is good. He's going to be a problem for the NFC North for a long time. Okay? And if you get him more weapons and allow him to call it, it's going to be some more issues. But the scary part is how much time are we going to have with Stafford? Because that injury that he got, it put another quarterback out the league.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to, because again, you're talking about, you know, if you get a new coach in there after next year, you know, you're talking about a 5-year turnaround. That's longer if you have to wait for a franchise QB. Like, they're not growing on trees over there. So like,
no,
you know,
absolutely not.
I mean, like, it's one of those things that you look at this year, right? So obviously, you know, all the expectations are Matthew Stafford is going to be able to come back and compete at a level that we're expecting him to. But like, there has to be in the back of your mind, like, coming up in this draft where you're going to be a top 10 pick again. It's thinking top three. There
top
you go. Yep.
Top
three. You're kind of like, okay, maybe we take the Packers approach, and, you know, we already have a quarterback, but maybe we just draft another high one and kind of let him sit behind a few years.
I said that. And I had a lot of fans tell me you're crazy. And I said, when are you going to be this high to get a high quality quarterback?
You hope not again. You hope not again.
you hope it not, right? And so, and then on top of that, I also looked at it from this standpoint too, where, cause I was thinking about you know, going back to what you were saying about that Washington Redskins fan and all the hope that he had lost, but that team beat the Lions. You know, and you know, there's these little things that you have to look at and say, what do we need to do to not lose to the bottom feeders? It's not the good teams we're losing to, but the bottom feeders.
Yeah.
You know, what do we got to do to stop making rookie quarterbacks who like the second coming of Hall of Famers? You know, and to me, it starts with building for the future. But here's the problem. Once you put the ultimatum out to our head coach and our general manager that we need to be playoff contenders, they're in panic mode. So they're in win now mode.
Yep.
You're not going to make moves based on the future. You're going to make moves based on now.
Yep.
And now that panic creates an unnecessary overreaction. So you essentially set us up, and I had a subscriber say to me, "Well, what's the difference between Matt Patricia being fired this year or being fired next year?" I said, "This year, you know that you already have enough talent in tech that if you bring somebody in, you know that your offensive coordinator is good. You just need to bring somebody in that's going to really do the defense the right way and get it done, and who's not learning on the job. Somebody like Rex Ryan who comes in with an attitude." And boy, I made a lot of people mad with that. Rex Ryan.
Yeah, I don't know if you go that extreme, but you're talking about basically like, hey, because there's these two different personalities that are clashing, right? It's okay. Are we a rebuilding team? Because if we're a rebuilding team, then we're looking to the future and that's it, right? Because we're basically saying, hey, for the next few years, we're going to suck. Like, it's going to happen. For the next 2 years, we're going to suck. But if you're saying, hey, we were a 9-7 team, we're rebuilding, but we're just kidding, we're not really rebuilding, that's when you start spending a whole lot of money in free agency to that win now mentality. And that's how you mortgage your future. And you wind up screwing yourself, because if you're saying, hey, we are a playoff contention team right now, you'll put as much money into that team to do that if you're not run well, and then you're essentially going to find yourself in a whole lot of cap trouble.
And this is why I'm on this show with you, because you're a smart man. And that statement is exactly what I'm saying. You are already at a point where you were going in the right direction. You know, before Matt Patricia came, we were sweeping you as the Packers. And yes, I know one of the games y'all didn't have Aaron Rodgers, but the one game y'all didn't have Aaron Rodgers, they still showed a level of dominance in that game that was not heard of. And it's frustrating to see us go from that to this, you know, to this. And I'm gonna show you what really is the telltale sign that lets you know that the Lions have went backwards. And it's not the record. It's not even the record. You know what it was? It was the simple fact that you were already creating excuses to bring this guy back before the season ever even ended. You know, you were putting everybody on injury reserve for no reason. Hangnails, a tooth fell out, injury reserve. That guy, he's got real bad indigestion, injury reserve. It was just the stupid. Yeah, just the stupidest things. And I knew right then and there that I was like, hey, I'm rooting. I cannot say this enough. I am rooting that I'm wrong. I pray that he proves me wrong.
100%.
But my football brain, my spirit as a competitor tells me I am not wrong about this. And that it's going to be hard for me to tell the subscribers this and have them be excited about the fact.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's going to be challenging. Even with Micro Mike, who I do the show with, he's like, I'm going to support him because he's obviously the guy now. And I'm like, I can't support him, but I can root for him.
Sure.
I just can't support him. And it's hard when you see it because you know that this team is better. Now, watch what's going to happen this last game. Because people are fighting for their jobs and they're fighting to keep. They're going to come out there and give the Packers all kind of flux, and they're going to give them that for about a good 2 quarters, maybe 2.5. And as soon as y'all get up 13 points, that whole spirit is going to die out. Well, we fought, and that for this fan base is going to be the way the season ends and on to it. So, you know. I really believe that the games would have been better if we had better coaching and better positioning. But when you're playing to not lose the game versus to win, it's hard to have any faith.
Well, yeah, which is also, I mean, you know, kind of just bringing it full circle to kind of like wrap it up. You look at like the Cardinals game, right? Like the very first, you know, game of the season. Right, in which like that game should not have ended in a tie, like, you know. But again, it's that idea of like you play not to lose, and then you wind up losing, and I think that you know, obviously, you know, we don't know what's going to happen on Sunday. You never know. You know, I thought we wouldn't get blown out by the Chargers, but here we are. But if it turns out the way that you say it's going to, it's going to be really it's going to be very interesting looking at the juxtaposition between how we ended our season last year getting blown out by you at home in which Randall Cobb is crying on the sideline with Aaron Rodgers, knowing that that's his last game in Green Bay. The team has completely given up any hope, any inkling of like, this is there's nothing to take out of this. Like, this is how the 2018 Green Bay Packers are going down. And if it so happens that the opposite happens this Sunday, it's going to be interesting. And the important thing is going to be, where do you go from here? Because you could be upset, you could be dejected, you can, not be optimistic, but at the end of the day, you're going to come back and you gotta make moves and you gotta make plays. And, whether that's going to be a change in the head coach and who knows, maybe Sunday is that bad, in which they're like, you know what, maybe we don't bring Matt Patricia back. Maybe. Or
hey, don't get my hope up like that. Don't do that.
Because listen, Mike McCarthy, I never thought that the Green Bay Packers would get rid of him mid-season. And they literally throw him out with, I'm sorry, not mid-season. They threw him out with a couple weeks left. They threw him out after the Cardinals game. And it's one of those things that, hey, yeah, even for these next few weeks, we're not going to win games. We're going to be under people who don't really know what they're doing. But, you know what? At least we are showing, hey, things are going to be different now. And if there's anything that maybe comes out of, whether it's this game or whether it's the offseason, it's that, hey, things are going to be different now. Because if you get complacent with, hey, we just want to be playoff contenders, right now you're sitting at 3 wins. You're even far away from the playoff things from this season. So what do we need to do to make sure that we get back there? And that starts with leadership. That all starts with leadership.
Yep, and that's what my focus is going to be on when it comes to the Lions is, how do we get better? Where do we get better at? Where do we start? Who we go after in free agency? Who we go after in the draft? I predicted that we would take T.J. Hockenson. I was steadfast on it on my research. My research is telling us that we're targeting a linebacker and a defensive back this time. And I'm steadfast on it. I'm still digging into it. I have the Bob Quinn code. I've broken it. And I'm almost sure about who they're going to take this draft. I just need him to say one more interview, and I can be able to confirm it. But, the key term of we're further away than we are closer is what's really eating at me.
Sure.
And, to try to sell them on a bill of goods that this team is getting better when I don't see it, I just can't do it. If they beat the Packers, am I going to be happy? Yes, I want us to win every game.
Of course.
But that win against the Packers didn't hurt the Packers that bad. And on top of that, that win does nothing but basically still give you a 10, 21-1 record where you got one less loss than the guy who third season went 0-16.
Yeah. Yeah. It literally is a moral victory that you take into the season, like the off season. Yeah. That's it. But yeah, I mean, we shall see, my friend. We shall see. But Luke, thank you so much for coming on, man. This was absolutely wonderful talking to you. It was absolutely great picking your brain about the Detroit Lions, and I hope that we can get that rivalry kind of renewed a bit more. Because again, when everyone in the NFC North is playing well, like, it makes for a competitive, must-watch football, and I think that's just better for the product. It's better for every single team, and it's a whole lot more fun. But please tell all the people where they can find you at.
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at PhilG's, or you can find me on my email address at LukeG'sFairReview@gmail.com. And if you go to any of my videos and you just look in the description, there's a little link to my Discord where we can go in there. We talk, all the Lions fans are in there. We talk different things. You can shoot me questions, ask me to come onto the show. I'll get you on the show that way. Pretty much that's it, man. Or even just look up, if you just do hashtag DSA or hashtag Detroit Sports Alliance, you're going to see all the videos pop up. So absolutely check that out. Like I said, I got a newborn, so videos ain't coming out as fast as I would like because I'm not getting sleep, but we are about to be back at it, and I'm going into film study mode because, like I said, there's some talent out there, and I know right now the hot topic is Lions must get Chase Young, but I got bad news for Lions fans. It's probably not going to happen.
He's probably not going to be there, but
he'll be there. He'll be there. With us at 3, Bengals take Joe Burrow. The Washington Redskins are at 2. They'll take an offensive tackle because they're going to release Trent Williams. And he'll be there, but that won't be their pick.
I mean, yeah, God, the Redskins. That's another organization. That's another hour and a half conversation of just like, that was one of those interviews where I was just like, I need a drink, like a really stiff drink after that, because it's just like, oof. Like, okay, like, because at least you guys could be like, yeah, there's talent there. They're just like, we hate our stadium. We hate the parking lot. We hate our name is racist as hell. Like, we got nothing going for us. But listen, at least you're not the Redskins. There's that. There's always that. But Luke, thank you so much for coming on, man. This was absolutely great.
Hey, absolutely. Appreciate it. And we're going to be doing this again because we got a lot of football left. At least for next year, that is.
Absolutely. So go check out Luke G. He's a phenomenal YouTuber, phenomenal conversationalist, and just an awesome guy. So check him out. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy, all social media, see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And a big shout out and thank you all the Patreon members over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack, go.